It's Aes Sedai night over here at the podcast.
It's the ladies special.
And we're going to be doing like the biggest freaking badassest scenes in the whole book. So that's pretty cool.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers Podcast. Your hosts are Aradia Farmer and Kelsey Maxwell.
Thank you so much for letting us do these super awesome chapters.
And I'm super excited to actually be live in the studio with the guys doing the thing in a proper microphone rather than on my phone. And this is just super exciting. I'm super jazzed that we're finally doing this. Patrick's going to read us in.
Chapter 46, To Come Out of the Shadow, and our symbol is the ruby-hilted dagger. Nynaeve and the others heard distant shouts as they approached the buildings where the Damani were housed. The crowds were beginning to pick up, and there was a nervousness to the people in the street, an extra quickness to their step, an extra wariness in the way they glanced past Nynaeve, in her lightning-paneled dress, and the woman she held by a silver leash. Shifting her bundle nervously, Elaine peered toward the noise of shouts, one street over, where the golden hawk clutching lightning rippled in the wind. "What is happening?" "Nothing to do with us," Nynaeve said firmly. "You hope," Min added, "and so do I."
So much is about to happen. Okay, so my very first thought, why the ruby-hilted dagger? Literally my first thought, why the ruby-hilted dagger?
Right, because it's entirely the girls, right?
Right. Matt got his dagger back in the preceding chapter, but he's not in this chapter. Fane's not in this chapter. So why is the dagger heading the chapter? Maybe, I mean, technically Fane sort of engendered the whole situation by drawing Rand there, but...
That's true. Could it be Joffrey? Our friend Geoframe?
Geofram. Maybe? Maybe.
I mean, he makes this like short little appearance, and is the dagger though always representing Fane, or is it like general dark friend chaos?
I mean, it does seem kind of like a chaos element. Like whenever we see Fane, we see a lot of chaos, and the White Cloaks basically are also always an agent of chaos. And the horn and dagger are connected. That's true.
I'm thinking it's just the culmination of all these different events that have been happening up until this point, and shit's about to hit the fan. But that's like the most close connection I could make to the ruby-hilted dagger or Fane.
That's better than I could think of, so I'm going to just go with it. That sounds like an excellent explanation. So we're opening to our jailbreak crew, literally trying to pretend nothing is happening while the three Taviran boys are just stirring the pot. They are chopping people down and like getting guards running around and all this stuff. And they're trying to waltz through like dum-de-dum. Nothing's happening. Nothing's going on. It's like the most suspicious thing ever. And really random. Like they're just whatever. And I also noticed that they're holding on to Sita, who is quickly learning how invisible she is on the other side of the leash. She's used to being front and center. Now she's just a collar and a dress.
Yeah.
Uniforms really, really matter to the Shan-Chan. They see the uniform before they see the person. I mean, obviously it's really important for like the symbolization of how the slavery is going, but it's also like good world building for the culture of the Shan-Chan. Like they are that oriented around their uniforms and their visual hierarchy.
You know, I have thought about that because I wonder like if they get tired of wearing the same thing over and over, especially because clothes play such a huge role in the series. So I feel like that's worth mentioning.
Totally. I have also wondered that there's these powerful women that are like very near the top of the pecking order because they can control the one power, and yet they don't get to like show that off with their dress. They're just all like this uniform thing.
I'm sure, well, we don't get a whole lot of glimpse into like average people. We really see like the people in the blood or the Doka Vale or Soldam, etc. I mean, even if you're like up in the ranks, you really have no freedom whatsoever.
Yeah. It could be only when they're on duty. But I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe. Do we see any of the blood going shopping for clothes that are... No, but the blood are not... They're never Suldam. The blood are not Suldam.
Right.
Do we ever see off-duty Suldam? I mean, you're kind of always on call when you're a Suldam, right?
We get some glimpses into Tuon's life, but she's such an extreme example of a Shan-Chan that I don't know how much we can really take about her life.
Yeah. Or maybe, like, they can stylize it different ways. You know, kind of like the Aes Sedai shawls aren't always the same plants or whatever. Like, they could have different styles within that context. So maybe, like, the Suldam dresses are the same.
So Radia made, like, this huge book of notes, and it's awesome. So I'm trying to digest all that.
Okay, so my next thing is the Demani kennels. Just want to point out kennels, not stables. Still where you house animals, but it makes me think more of like the Downton Abbey where the servants live, like up in the attic. I mean, obviously, like even crappier because they don't get like mirrors, or for some reason, like stable makes me think on the ground, whereas kennel like makes me think up high.
And also, I feel like the use of kennel is more degrading.
Yeah, and yeah, kennel sounds less spacious. I mean, arguably
it's
horses are really docile.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's messed up. So the kennels are Downton Abbey's version of Downton Abbey. Like, they're just awful. Also, next thing, which I noticed you commented on it on my document online, is hashtag Eglad for Egwene and Galad. That's how I'm shipping that.
Is that one you made up, or is that...
Oh, no, I totally made that up.
Has it come up on the Discord before?
Well, the discussion about how... Timber, shut up. The Nablus is very cute and very noisy. Yeah, see, now it's a thing. We've now made it a thing. I made it a thing. I just impacted the internet.
Awesome.
Hallelujah. But when the women come into the room, Egwene's like, you would be Galad and Rand. This was my fantasy. I think we're totally still seeing Egwene being into Galad because, I mean, either RJ missed it or this is still her transitioning because she's still into Rand. Right? Like her fantasy is Rand and or his half-brother. I think it's like the trip back to Tarvalin is when Egwene turns away from Rand and turns away from Galad and is totally into Gawain, because that is when Elaine would have the most chance to be talking up one and down on the other.
He and Berlain are objectively the most good-looking people in this series.
Right? If Elaine had just shut her judgmental trap, then Egwene would have lived for like ever.
That's sad. Well, I still think she was like destined to die.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. Egwene would have been such a good Amerlin, but no.
Well, okay, this is a tangent, but would she though? Or was she the Amerlin that the world needed at that time, and then it was time for her to leave?
That is a fair point. She was so extraordinary that she might have been too much for the post-Last Battle world.
Yeah, just a philosophical question.
That is really valid, though. I mean, she was super extraordinary. So how could she handle the regular world?
Yeah, I was really sad when she died, but I don't know how it would go down. Like, Batman, Two-Face says you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It's a little extreme, but I feel like there's an argument to be made that she had to take extreme measures and she did what needed to be done, but in like a more transition type of world and political setting, she might not have been the right Amerlin.
I'm nodding. It's happening. I'm actually nodding at the microphone. I'm also wearing the shirt because obviously I would come to the studio wearing the shirt.
Oh, are you wearing your Wheel of Time shirt?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got my sticker on my water bottle, and I got the pin on my backpack, and I'm wearing the shirt. Yeah, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is a really good point. Egwene had way too much power.
But first, we need to rescue her.
This is very true. And I just wanted to point out that the fact that Egwene thinks they should come in on stallions is kind of raunchy. Like, damn, Egwene. Damn, on stallions, huh? Huh? Is that how this is? This is some of the darkest that we see Egwene and Nynaeve. when they're talking about torturing Sita. It's like really the darkest they get, like in a lot of ways.
I think it's an important moment for them, though, because, I mean, we don't see them like reflect on this moment too many times, but I think it really establishes for them their ethical boundary of what's right and wrong, and I feel like they really stick to that for the rest of the series.
Yeah, I noted that later, that like we really see Nynaeve go like full wisdom when she talks Egwene down from wanting to torture or kill the Suldam. Like her reasoning is extremely like way of the leaf grade philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
She just has a very profound insight into how Egwene needs to not be messed up by that, which is like, think about how messed up the future Amyrlin could get if she talked herself into torturing and or killing her captors. Like, she would be forever altered, right? And that could have been really problematic for the Amyrlin that the last battle needed.
Right. And, you know, it could have been a huge distraction for her for the rest of the series. You know, she has PTSD that she has to deal with, but I mean, she moves on from that, and she has some moments of like, I want to kill all the Shan-Chan, but by the time the last battle comes, she has to like face them from a political standpoint and from a position of power, and she doesn't let that affect her judgment too much. I mean, there's a lot of Egwene haters out there, and so I'm sure that they would be arguing against that, but for the sake of probably the rest of this episode, let's just say we're generally pro Egwene. I'm not going to get into that, but
absolutely,
she doesn't let that affect her course of action.
Yeah, and I think it's super, super important how Nynaeve makes sure that is how Egwene comes out of this scene. Like, that's really, really important. Like, we needed Nynaeve to do that, because otherwise we'd have, like, Darth Egwene. It would be like post-box Rand, like, all over that.
Right, and Rand's, like, a great contrast, and he had so many variables going on, but he was not okay after that, and, I mean, he turned into Darth Rand, and he was horrible, and contrast to that, Egwene was able to rise above it, and then learn from the wise ones, learn from the Aes Sedai, etc., etc.
Right. Yeah, it's really, if Egwene and Rand could have had a slightly more parallel experience, the world would have been slightly less on the edge of destruction. Because Rand really got the way worse end of the deal. But Egwene's very much experiencing a parable of what Rand will experience.
Everyone on the Discord is loving on Egwene, so to all the listeners, FYI, this is how we stand on Egwene.
Yeah, we are a pro-Egwene podcast. If you don't like that, then you know where the door is. We will not stand for that. I mean, we can definitely acknowledge her flaws, but she's great. I definitely have occasionally given myself the pep talk of, what would Egwene do? Egwene would not be such a little baby about this.
I know.
Not Egwene.
Not Egwene.
Absolutely.
Or Egwene, like Patrick and Seth. Cough, cough.
Yeah, I definitely, it's how the podcast does it. Michael Kramer and Kate Redding know what's up. What would Nynaeve do? You know, I really liked tugging on my braid when I had one. I currently have my head shaved like the voice of the blood, but I used to have a braid down to my waist, and tugging on it was excellent. It was excellent relief.
That's awesome. So you pointed out that Rena and Sita are the two that kind of torture Egwene. They're the ones that Matt ends up rescuing later on.
They are.
So part of that is the general Wheel of Time conservation of characters.
I like that.
But it is interesting.
Because, I mean, Matt and Egwene have a very interesting relationship in that they're very much like siblings as they go through the world. For Matt to essentially redeem these characters who, like, tortured his sister. I mean, he doesn't know it, but nonetheless, it happens. Is kind of interesting. It's an interesting arc that would be the character who loops around with them.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Matt was able to figure out how to open the collar just with an hour of playing with it, but Nynaeve figured out a way to do it with the power. 2 different ways to open it.
I've never understood that. Is it a magical collar, or is it like just a unique way it's made?
I think it's just a unique way it's made because I don't think the Suldom channel to open it. Yeah, Perrin totally would have figured it out in like 15 minutes.
Is it just a blacksmith's puzzle?
And presumably you can't solve it if you're the one wearing it. I mean, obviously that is a thing. But I just thought it was interesting that Nynaeve figured out how to just sort of like smack it open. Like she just taps it in the right way with some wind and just like pops the mechanism. I thought that was pretty cool.
Some of them, I guess I can't say magical, but like kind of magical aspect of if you're actually wearing it and you can channel, you can't remove it because once you think about removing it, you get the punitive effects.
Exactly. Which is really creepy how like specific it's able to get into your head.
It is. So when I read this the first time, I felt like Egwene was kidnapped for ages, and same with Rand in the box. Mm-hmm. But when you reread it, it's really not that long.
Yeah, Rand is in the box for like a week, maybe, but this is like a month. So like it's a while, but it's not that long, which is definitely long enough to learn things. I mean, it's a moon of captivity, right? That matters.
So we finally get her out. Thank God.
Oh, right.
And then we kind of get some clues about the revelation that the Shanshan system is not correct. Like, if you have any channeling ability at all, right, you could be Marath Damani.
Of course, it would be the future Amerlin that is the one that makes that discovery for the people of the Westlands.
She's probably been analyzing everything about the collar and the Shanshan and taking mental notes.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought it was appropriate that it would be like the Amerlin that sees the White Tower through the last battle that's like puts those pieces together. I mean, probably any Aes Sedai could, but of course it would be Egwene.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was interesting how we got the mechanics of Shanshan culture with how they find people. So every single girl has to try the collar, but it's like obligatory, and she gets to try on the bracelet. Like it's a privilege. Like every girl goes through that, collar and bracelet, like every year throughout her adolescence. And I just thought that was an interesting little bit of world building. Like that is a regular part of their annual culture, is like women going through that like ritual of being evaluated for either servitude or serious privilege.
Do they let the Damani have children?
They don't mention it, and we get some clues from Matt later that no one would sleep with property. Like that is sort of this weird thing.
Oh, right, because they do kind of touch on that with the Daco Veil.
Yeah, but you'd think that they would be, someone has to be breeding, or else it would get culled out of the system really fast. But maybe it's just Suldom.
It is.
But yeah, you'd think they would just breed Damani. I mean, they're property, they're animals, right? Like, just breed them. Like, that would make sense with their ethos.
I was just curious about it since it's such a big deal, like in Randland with the Aes Sedai and not being allowed. And, right, like, it's they're probably not culling as much as the Aes Sedai are. Because I think we were talking about this a little bit on the Discord channel, that it's almost an advantage that the Aes Sedai aren't great at recruitment, because it allows them to let a lot of channelers escape the White Tower and live normal lives, and then create like the Two Rivers. No one goes recruiting in the Two Rivers, right. So they've just been like growing this population of mega channelers.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jordan doesn't like to deal with like logical hereditary things in culture or in language or in genetics. Like logic, we don't need that. Which, I mean, is fair. He was a physicist, so you know.
Although it is interesting, like genetics plays a big role in the plot of Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of referenced in the Wheel of Time, but it's not explicit. There's a good point made on the Discord that the the ones with the spark, a lot of them died out. But the ones who could be taught but are never taught are like left in the population to hang out and make out.
Right, which then means that Shan should have had less channelers, but they would have been more effective at recruiting the channelers that did exist. But they would have been more effective at culling them out. It's so confusing.
Assuming that Soul Dom aren't allowed to have kids.
So I just wanted to point out that when Egwene is released to be able to do whatever she wants, she takes the pitcher to hit Rena. The very pitcher that she was like punished for trying to use as a weapon. That is the first thing she reaches for and attacks with effectively.
That's because she's Nynaeve's protege.
So yeah, exactly. The one she couldn't use the thing for days, and like that was the first thing she went to. Just like, oh yeah, now I can. Also, it's like the best thing in the room for a weapon. So there's that. But I thought it was a nice bit of like revenge.
I was just thinking that she was Nynaeve's protege, and that's how she learned to...
Oh, through a bowl at Mistress Aelin. Right. Yes, I also like that.
Grab a stool if you're fighting the Forsaken or whatever.
Right?
Like, just
totally.
throw it at her.
Yeah, just grab a random object and throw it at your adversary. It works every time. Yeah, so that's a Two Rivers ism, is throw shit at people. And it works a lot of times because people aren't expecting it because it's just so pathetically not enough, right? Demon Dread throws rocks in the last battle.
Oh, yeah, that's because he can't channel at the people wearing the fox head medallion.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and they also learn from Mistress Luhan, who beats a Trolloc to death with a frying pan.
Does she actually hit the Trolloc or does she just hunt the Trolloc with the frying pan?
Oh, she's definitely taken out Trolloc. She's a big woman.
Yeah, she is. I mean, and a frying pan is a hefty chunk of metal, so... She kills its ass.
Badass.
Totally. Bam!
She's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's such a classic fantasy trope, like the dong, like moment. Like, it's kind of a fantasy trope. It's not fantasy if you don't have someone being hit over the head with a frying pan.
I've never seen it before, but I haven't read enough fantasy to question that.
Well, or like in fantasy movies, I mean, it's in Lord of the Rings. That's really all the memeage you need. I mean, that makes it canon for the entire genre, right?
Was it in the book?
I don't know about it in the book, but it's definitely in the movie.
So I love this point that Aradia brings up in the notes. She puts, Egwene uses the Adam to torture Rena, and the question is, what do we think she does to torture her? Does she go like full torture, or does she just like cause a little bit of pain?
You think she just goes right back to boiling water? She doesn't get more creative than that?
I mean, didn't they use that on her?
They used that on her, which makes it logical for her to do that, but I also just wonder. And I was interested to see what Discord had to think about it. I mean, I'm just curious about what else she would have done because she's been there for a month. So she surely has experienced more than just boiling water.
Probably. Well, I guess it depends on like how long her stubbornness lasted.
Well, she's still stubborn.
Because, well, yeah, she's still stubborn, but she also like needs to survive.
Yeah, I don't think she started folding that much. Well, no, she started to fold slightly because she tells Min, like, I'm losing it. I'm starting to lose it. But she's only just starting to lose it after a month. And I got to imagine that the Suldam are creative.
Right. And I mean, at a certain point, you have to, like, have a sense of self-preservation and just get through it and not piss them off too much.
Right. And she was, like, at the beginning of that process and, like, freaking out about it. PMS on steroids. No, I think this is worse than PMS. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could see leveraging someone's uterus against them. That would be possible.
Yeah, that's a good point that Samuel makes in the Discord, that Egwene probably quickly fell in line, but she's never going to stop trying to escape.
Right, yeah. Kidney stones, God, yeah, seriously. Or childbirth. Or migraine headaches, or the list goes on and on. Though if none of them have kids, they wouldn't know what that feels like. Though they don't know what it's like to be boiled alive either. So
the next point is the Wonder Girls take the high road and they don't kill anyone. So it's probably good.
Yeah. You see in my notes, I said it's interesting that Elaine goes from pitying Sita to wanting to kill her with like no in between. Like she doesn't even consider
That's so
torture,
Elaine, though.
right? She just goes straight from like, oh, she needs my help to I'm going to behead this woman. Like,
I mean, she's the queen of Andor and also the queen of rash decision making.
so true. So freaking true.
I mean, I love her, but it's true.
Yeah, rashness and her are in the dictionary together.
And of course, like, we see what happens when our characters go full crazy and like straight up murder people. It is not great for their psyche.
Yeah, it definitely does some serious damage for them to do that, which is like, I mean, that's the philosophy behind the Way of the Leaf, is that the axe is harmed by the tree. Their philosophy is grounded in truth, even though they take it to an extreme and like get all evangelistic and vegan and
right. We see that come into play multiple times throughout the series.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a theme that Robert Jordan like didn't want to hammer you over the head with, but also wanted to draw your attention to.
I would say that that's probably one of the major themes of the series, and in large part based on his war experience, because he, felt that firsthand.
Yeah, for sure. It's like sometimes you have to do violence, but yeah, use the axe until you begin to like using it and then throw it away and run the other direction. Like, that's a good philosophy, probably.
I feel like the only character that really is able to do that is Lan.
Yeah.
And maybe Elias.
I do think Lan would set down his sword once the Trollocs were cleared from the Borderlands. For sure. I think he'd be okay with that. I don't think he'd be sad to stop being a warrior. Yeah, I'm always amazed that Lan is still kicking, like, even going into the last battle. Like, he's around in New Spring as a badass warrior. I mean, like, a young badass warrior, but still a badass warrior.
I mean, he's like 30 years old in border years. But like 40
years.
45. It's not an exact calculation.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, Nynaeve's sense of justice emphasizes the idea of karma, which goes well with the circular notion of time that goes with the whole Wheel of Time thing. Is like the idea. Like, he doesn't talk about karma a lot, but that's definitely like what Nynaeve is like talking about there. Maybe you've done enough good to balance out the evil that you've done, but like she's just letting that call up to the pattern, and like that's like one of the few moments we really see the concept of karma.
That's true.
So it's a good thing that they didn't slit the Sul'dam's throats for their own well-being, because they'll have lots of power over life and death in the coming books. So it's good that they didn't go too dark too fast. Bella alert. Bella almost got left behind. If they had gone with Domon, Bella would have been left behind and the last battle would have been lost.
That's absolutely true.
So this is why the battle happened the way it did, is because that was what drove them to get Bella out of the stable. Exactly. It's Bella's Ta'Veren weaving. Yep.
I was just about to say, is Bella Ta'Veren? Because I feel like she is, or just Rand's been writing her his whole life, that she's basically like Ta'Veren by proxy.
And also a hero of the Horn, clearly. Yeah, no one ever thought to check for Ta'Veren animals now, did they? I mean, Mandar was also clearly Ta'Veren, because how the hell else is he still going after all these goddamn battles?
Samuel's making a case that Rand is not Ta'Veren. It's actually Bella, and she rubs off on Rand.
I love it. I love it so much.
New headcanon.
Yeah, I know, right? Absolutely headcanon established. Okay, so we're getting close to the first perspective break. I want to know, are the soldiers marching out? Because they run into soldiers. Are they marching out because of the disturbance at Turax? Or the White Cloaks? Or, like, I'm always been so confused why there's soldiers out at this moment. Like, because the White Cloaks are lining up, but I don't see how the soldiers were seeing them. Right. At the end of the last chapter, Rock and Suze is like, see, Discord is so helpful. You can crowdsource the answer. That's where it's at. Oh my god, how did I never put those things together? I would have
just chalked it up to White Cloak fuckery.
I mean, it's a valid option, but Rockin' makes so much more sense. It's like he wrote words that we were meant to read. And I mean, also has been this disturbance at Turok, so maybe they're just like rushing to the house of the local lord. Maybe it's not clear, but we do know that the children are lining up to march on Falm, which I still don't understand why. The White Cloaks have decided that this is the moment that they're like, oh, look, enemies. We should just run at them full tilt. I never have gotten that rush.
Okay. Ignorant question.
Yeah?
Fane is not yet hanging out with the White Cloaks, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, never mind. Edit that out.
Victory for the light is all. Yeah, so I guess, they just show up and are just like, we're just going to take these guys down. Anyhow, we'll get to them in another, 4.5 years once we get to the end of this chapter. My last thought here is that Egwene totally shot first at the Shanchan. This is not, Nynaeve getting the horses from the White Cloaks. This is a clear case of Egwene shot first. And if she had just calmed down and not shot first, then, maybe that whole situation wouldn't have happened. I mean, Rand is drawn back because he sees fireballs go off. That's what pulls his attention around. And he's like, everything's falling apart. In the next chapter, it's Egwene freaking out and being all PTSD-tastic, which, I mean, to be fair, she just escaped 5 minutes ago.
And she's, totally shot up a level.
It's several levels.
Yeah.
But Rand also needs to declare himself over Tommen's head, so maybe, that was just meant to be. I mean, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. I literally have it etched on my leg, so I do believe it.
This chapter is so satisfying because it's everything has been building up into this point, and then it's just utter chaos.
Yeah, before we started recording, the three of us were talking about how the first season of the TV show could easily be the first 2 books. You know, and just have the Eye of the World be the mid-season kind of thing. Just because the second book is where so much of what gets set up in the first book, really starts to come together. And you're like, holy shit, this guy really is the dragon. And, this is what that means.
Right. That makes sense, especially because the Eye of the World, at the ending, we're not quite sure what all is going on.
Right.
And so it's kind of a good, I guess I could see it a good halfway point, but it's, even the book series itself is, still finding its way. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I feel like it's proper, Wheel of Time.
Right.
All these different characters coming together. And
mm-hmm. I often tell people, when I just want to recommend Eye of the World, I tell them, you can read this novel and have gotten 90% of the genius of Wheel of Time. And if you're really into it, then you can read the other 13 books and really experience that world fleshed out. If you only read this one book, I will still feel like my job was done because you will now know at least something of this thing that is so important to me, because he covers so much material in the first book. There's so many different adventures, and they split up and they almost die several times, and so much happens. It's a great standalone novel if that's all you have patience for. But at the same time, I'm also you really should read the entire thing because the world is huge and there's so many characters. And yeah, the part where Rand cries on Tam's shoulder takes books and books and books of build up to really appreciate.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful moment.
So I don't have much to say about Doman and Byer's point of views. Bornhald. We are about to get to the Ingtar moment. So I guess before we jump into that.
Yeah, I just want to point out the moment with the frog bear, the 3-eyed frog bear, just because I think it's a beautiful little tiny piece of world building when Domon watches a man appear from one of the warehouses with the Grom at his side, running to keep up with the beast's long leaps as they vanished into one of the streets leading up from the water. I just wanted to have a moment because I just love this dude probably trains with that animal. They probably have a working animal human relationship kind of thing going on. Just the way that they just run out of they hear a disturbance and they're like, this is what we're supposed to do, this is what we're trained for, and they go running out of the warehouse and up the street while this dude on the shore who sees them as an enemy is just what was that? I don't know, I just really I like that picture.
It's a really cool piece of imagery.
Yeah, and they're really weird animals to like try to imagine like how that would run up the street. POV switch to Bornhald. He thinks that the channeling is the weather. Domon does not think that the channeling is the weather. He knows it's not the weather. Like instantly, he's like, "No, that is definitely a problem." Yeah, Domon knows. Absolutely.
Domon's definitely not an idiot.
He stays for an amazingly long time in this battle. He just like hangs out.
He does.
Like, what? But yeah, Bornhald just marches on Falm, like, I'm gonna die on Tomon Head, so I should do it running full tilt at a city held by an invading army. Like,
cool.
Yeah, it's a great plan. Balefires less than Baal Domon. I do be a weave. Just a weave.
He's got a lot of spirit, for sure.
We have finally reached the coveted, much anticipated POV switch to Rand watching Ingtar redeem himself. Dun dun dun! I'm excited. Need like sound effects to like illustrate how epic this is. We've been talking about this, building up to this for 40 freaking episodes.
My question that I've been pondering as I've been listening is, at what point does Ingtar decide to redeem himself and turn back to the light?
See, this is an interesting thing, because I feel like he's not as much of a double agent as Varen, for sure. But I also feel like he's been very reluctantly pulled into the shadow, and so in a sense, he's always been looking for a way out. Like, he's always been conflicted. But definitely Flicker is like...
probably the turning point.
Like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, that's the point at which he realizes that he's too far gone. There is no final task. Always something more will be required of me, I think is what he says. He's a Boromir sort of character. And so I feel like like Flicker really put him into that, like, I'm ready to make my final sacrifice to save everyone kind of thing. Like, he needs his final redemption because he doesn't want to damn himself any more than he's already damned. That's kind of how I've always interpreted his character. Because Flicker matters, but I don't think it turns him from, like, the Great Lord is coming, yay, to, like, oh no, the Dragon Newborn. Like, I think he always has been skeptical of his allegiance, but thinks that it's how he's going to save his people. And it takes Flicker to show him that he did it the wrong way.
Right, that makes sense. And at that point, he realizes that there was no way that was ever going to work.
He can only admit to it once he decides to sacrifice himself. Like, he almost admits it to Varen with, like, I walk in the light, but she might have already, like, shown him her dark hand, like, at this point, possibly. And then also, this is the hour of his death. So, just hit the mic. So he can totally be upfront with anyone. And also, I mean, he's being upfront with Rand. I mean, Rand is, like, basically Jesus. So he can forgive your sins, right? That's how that works? Yeah, and I just think, like, he breaks all bonds, right? That gives him sort of this, like, ability to forgive and to give a meaning of absolution that Ingtar would find valuable, right? Because he knows that Rand is, like, important.
I'm nodding. There also could be some Ta'Veren influence here, too, where it's his last chance and he takes it.
Yeah, because Rand is there. It, like, tips the odds in his favor of actually pulling it off.
Right. But, like, that makes it seem like Ingtar gets less credit, which I don't want to do. But at the same time, like, it could be having an effect.
Yeah, it might be that the Ta'Veren nature of the situation does make it easier for him to say something that would arguably be really difficult to admit, you know?
Right.
The one thing that I just shot a hole in my own theory, though, about Ingtar always being conflicted, and that I wanted to talk about and I need everybody's help with, is how Ingtar stands up straight after he admits everything and says that he's gonna sacrifice himself to save them and he's all good. He looks like he did before the attack on Faldara. And I always I just realized, like, that totally shoots a hole in the idea that he's conflicted. Unless, of course, he never actually did anything dark before letting the Grey Man into Faldara. He was one of those dark friends in abeyance who was just promised power but never actually did anything.
It's definitely entirely possible.
But it's just like he wasn't weighed down before the attack on Faldara. You know, I'm like making the argument that he's like this tortured, tragic character, and it's like he was fine before Faldara, like, attack happened.
I don't know. I mean, he had to have been pretty down to make the choice that he made to turn to the dark side to save his country, because he felt like there was no other way.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that's a pretty tortured place to be.
Rand's vision of him is like that he's like standing straight and confident, and it's just interesting that like clearly for Ingtar, like all the bad shit started at the attack on Faldara. So we don't know there's compulsion. I think there's compulsion. I think his antsiness is compulsion. I really think we've got good evidence for compulsion. But he definitely did think he was helping Faldara. Oh, evidence for compulsion with the Gray Man? I don't know. Maybe not. If he was at the Dark Friend Social, he would have been subject to whatever the compulsion from that point on, but it might have not taken effect until the horn was stolen. So...
Right.
But I mean, there is the death is lighter than a feather thing where he just the relief of knowing redemption was coming. But like, I want him to have been tortured before.
That feels huge to me because we see it happening in action. Like, we've heard the phrase from Lan by now, but we actually see like the physical manifestation of that in Ingtar, because he's finally free from that, and he knows that even if it's an impossible task to save his country, it doesn't matter because he's doing everything that he can at this point, and there's satisfaction in knowing that.
Yeah, I'm nodding. Yeah, it's just Ingtar's such an interesting character, and then he goes and dies.
I know.
And Discord is coming up with all kinds of cool ideas.
I know, it's really awesome. I'm trying to sort through it.
It's so hard to keep up. You guys are so epic at giving up with us all the time. Especially when lots of people come, because we like talk the event up like really big. Like, everyone come! I expect you to make time!
But I do think that there is an argument that can be made that he hasn't done anything truly reprehensible until the moments of this book. Maybe he's been like signing a letter here or there or something of that effect.
Right, yeah, because we get a line from Fane about taking the Dark Friends from Faldara, who were called upon for the first time to answer their oaths at that attack. So, you know, it's like maybe he didn't take all of those with him.
Right. So Patrick brought up the idea that maybe Varen healed whatever compulsion Ingtar had going on.
That's interesting.
Seth disagrees.
It would be really hard. She's a brown, not a yellow, and Nynaeve is the one that figures out how to heal real compulsion. I mean, taint compulsion. So given that Varen had to reverse engineer compulsion backwards, I doubt she found a way to get around it. But it's interesting. It's an interesting theory. And Nynaeve doesn't heal compulsion until book 12. Also, there's that. But I mean, like, also, I feel like the magic system is not completely set yet. I feel like it gets much more set at about book 4, and there's still a lot of interesting interpretation in the first 3 books that you can't make as much in the later books.
That's true.
Like, I feel like it gets much more systematic at about book 4. At that point, he's like locked it down. Everything is decided. But here there maybe is some more open-ended stuff.
And then when Brandon takes over, it's like extremely systematic.
Yeah, for sure. Though I gotta say, I really like what Sanderson did. I was like worried that like Robert Jordan was just gonna like drone himself into like a rut so that way the last battle wasn't exciting. And I honestly feel like changing authors kind of helped. Like, you can throw Rotten Tomatoes at me if you want, but like,
I'm throwing Rotten Tomatoes.
It's like, I don't want to say I'm glad he died, but like I'm kind of glad he died because like they got finished in a really interesting, wonderful way.
I'll cut that out.
Yeah, because I'm not saying I'm glad he died. I'm just saying I'm glad Brandon Sanderson was involved.
I'm glad that Sanderson was able to finish the series, but I really wish RJ. There's no way it could have been as good, but we got the best that we could in the circumstances.
And you can totally tell like the few scenes that like Sanderson didn't touch. Like, you can just tell. You can tell.
Yeah.
and the stuff that's totally him and the stuff that's like collaborative. Like in my opinion, like there's a few scenes that just feel like the eye of the world. Like he must have written them years and years and years ago and just been writing towards them the whole time.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yes, that says I wanted Jordan's last 6 books, because we know it would not have been just 3.
Samuel, if I'm right about when I'm calling the stylistic differences, then yes, I agree. The epilogue is all him. But I don't know, because...
That's confirmed.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm. Harriet and Brandon have been purposefully not clarifying who wrote what throughout the last books, but the epilogue is 100% Jordan.
Yeah, and you can just tell. And I think I seriously think he must have written it in like 92 or something, you know, like early.
Oh yeah, I think
it feels
that was
so
like,
old school RJ.
Right, yeah, like Brandon doesn't even know what the pipe lighting,
I love
how
the
that
pipe
works.
lighting. I love the fact that it ends on a fucking enigma. It's like, seriously right now you wrapped up everything and then you throw in that? What? But I mean, he's a genius. He's a goddamn genius. Like, fine, be that way.
It's so perfect. I feel like there's more to be said about Ingtar.
Okay, there is more to be said about Ingtar. I like that Huron is kind of the witness to this moment. That is Rand both. This is, I think, Rand's first time sending someone to his death, and like being responsible for someone dying in this very like, okay, I'm gonna turn around and let you kill yourself on these 12 soldiers. Like, and Rand does that a shit ton, like later in the books, but this is maybe the first time. And Huron is this really small character, this really tiny little character that we don't see for books and books and books and books and books, is there witnessing all of this happen and just standing witness and just being that like everyman, not Lord, not Ta'Veren. He's just there watching it happen and bearing witness for like all the rest of us. And I like that constructed cast.
That is pretty great. And this is such a huge moment for Rand because he's been fighting his leadership this entire book. And when his people need him most, he does it without question or hesitation. It's such a hard thing for him to do, but Ingtar needs him, so he rises to the occasion. I feel like this is one of the first instances of Rand being like a true king, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, and it's so small, but it's so profound. And yeah, basically nobody sees it. It's like him winning the sword fight with Turak. Like, it's a really important moment in a sword master's life, blade master's life, but nobody sees it except for Rand, you know? It's a really nice constructed sort of like picture of Rand's very first experience of true kingship. And I mean, Ingtar is a really good first death to order, you know, because Ingtar takes it really well. You know, he's sheathing the sword with all deliberateness. Like, it's not like sending some terrified village youth with a stick into battle. It's like letting a soldier choose how to sheath the sword.
I mean, he's a borderlander at heart.
Yeah, and then
Ingtar
gets to confess and repent, like, privately. Private absolution, but very meaningful because it's coming from, like... I mean, Ingtar doesn't know he's the dragon, but he knows he's hella important.
I would say that.
Yeah, that's an excellent example of how one sheathes the sword. And I guess it's about time for Patrick to read us out, unless you have anything else to say, Kelsey?
I don't have anything else to say. I mean, I think the moment speaks for itself.
All right, take it away, Patrick.
Rand turned and found Huron staring at him, staring at both of them. It is time for us to go, but Lord Ingtar does what he has to, Rand said sharply. But we go. Huron nodded, trotted after him. Rand could hear the steady tread of the Shanshan's boots now. He did not look back.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. rate us in the Apple Podcast app, or support us on Patreon.